You missed it. Show number 121, where we answer your questions live on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Periscope. Well, here's the highlights, the replay of the best questions from show 121. Stand by. Let's get it.
Flip man, it's the flip man. Flip man. You want some money in your hand? Flipping houses without credit or your cash. Get that bag.
The Facebook user name doesn't come up. The question is, does your one-page contract work with, I guess, between you and the seller and between you and the buyer? Yeah, you can use the contract for both sellers and buyers. Sometimes your buyer may not want to use the one-page contract that I make available to you guys, but that's going to be up to you as long as the terms match. Long as the terms match your terms and then alter your deal with the seller, then it's okay to use their one-page actual contract. Jig Mo says, what's your philosophy on doing a purchase and sales as opposed to assignment contract? Well, for me, the way I was taught it and the way I teach it, both work. If you just want to do an assignment between you and the buyer, both work. But the way I was taught and the way I teach it is, if you do an assignment contract, then that means you're off the top, your assignment fee is exposed, which means they're now going to negotiate your assignment fee, knowing exactly what you're trying to make. But if you do a contract A with the seller, contract B with the buyer, or A, B, and C, D, however you want to term it, then they don't know what you have it on the contract with the seller for, right? So you could have it on a contract for $1, and we'll just say a $200,000 property. You got it on the and you're putting it out there for $100,000. You may have a contract for $1. So they're going to negotiate based on what price works for them, not determining what they think is a fair amount for you to pay to receive as an assignment fee. Now they can eventually find out what it is. That's fine or whatever, and but I'm not going to deal with buyers that are going to trip about my assignment fee. It's about relationships and having buyers that want to buy from you over and over again. You're going to have some people that will trip about your assignment fee, but most don't. They understand, or they will view you as an actual asset. All right, Brandon Sample says, I went to a title company and they said transactional funding was illegal in Pennsylvania. Any thoughts? Well, I could go to, if I just pick out a random title company here in Alabama, depending on where I'm going, who am I speaking with, they'll tell you that. One of my first mistakes, I have a video, probably my second most popular video is the 5 mistakes newbies should avoid when starting out as wholesaling. I'm not sure why you're reaching out to them about transactional funding, but one of the worst things you can do is try to reach out to title companies and say, hey, I want to start wholesaling or whatever, blah, blah. You never know who you're going to deal with. They may have never done a transaction like that. But the main reason is that your buyer is going to dictate who and where you close, because they're the one with the money. The one with all the gold makes sense. So why? You can do that, but I'm just telling you, you're probably wasting your time. Or you can go through all that and you find a title come say that they'll do all that and the buyer may not want to use them. It's that simple. So just wait until you have a seller on the contract, a buyer on the contract, find out where they want to close. You can then close with that individual. He may tell you, say, where it doesn't matter. Then you go out and try to find an actual buyer, a title company or closing attorney to close the deal for you. But trust me, if you have an actual deal on the table where they're going to know they're going to get paid, the response and the reaction of how they deal with you would be totally different. And if one says no, you go to another one. But the main thing is don't even worry about that, in my opinion, until you actually have a buyer on the contract and a seller on the contract. So just my 2 cents on it. All right. Malik Cantland says, when doing a joint venture, what contract do I use to get paid? Well, I'm going to use a purchase and sales agreement whenever I'm doing joint ventures in most cases, meaning that I'm going to have a contract with the seller. I'm going to have a contract. Well, let me see, depends on what side I'm on. But assuming I'm in contract with the seller, um, and someone's going to bring a buyer to me, it's really not like we're doing a joint venture. Either we're going to agree on a price or what I have it on the contract for, and we just split it, or I give them a price and whatever they make above that. But I'm going to treat them just like a buyer because I'm going to use a purchase and sales agreement. That ensures people get paid. That joint venture contract stuff, you can get paid on it, but it's really not anything that probably is going to hold up because you're now acting. Trust me, you want to have purchase and sales agreements in place no matter what level you're on whether you're dealing with the seller, you're another wholesaler, co-wholesaling. That's what I do. So again, it's the other stuff that obviously works. I'm just telling you, you could easily more so get cut out of the deal if you don't have a purchase and sales agreement in place. Jay Miles says, I found a property, but it seems to be a foreclosure. How do I approach this situation? If it's an actual foreclosure, meaning the bank is actually, taking the property back, then if it's not listed for sale, you have to basically wait until it is listed for sale by an agent. As far as the wholesale game, those are more difficult to wholesale for a number of reasons. But to answer your question, really nothing you can do until they put it back out there for sale. I'm assuming that's what you're asking. All right, here's a question from Michael Coleman. Flip man, how can you find leads if you can't drive for dollars? Or I'm assuming you mean you don't have transportation or whatever your situation may be. That's not the only way you find deals. As a matter of fact, it's one of the harder ways to find deals in reality. Um, you're going to need a couple $100. All right. If it sounds like you're having trouble with transportation, I'm assuming maybe something else, but that's what I'm assuming. Then you may want to go and try to do some cold calling. Buy a list, get a skip trace, and start doing some cold calling. Then you don't have to leave the house as far as generating the lead. Now, when it comes time to viewing the property and so on, you will need some transportation or someone acting on your behalf or whatever. So that'll just that'll be the one thing that you can actually do. So it's cold. That's what I would recommend. All right. From Darius King. Can a place say for sale by owner sign in the yard of a property I have under contract? Some situations will present themselves where you can do that. Some sellers won't care. It may even be a situation where the seller's out of town and they just don't know or whatever. So you're just gonna have to play that by ear. Technically, no, you shouldn't. So you're just gonna have to play that case by case on that. But what you can do is put signs out in the area where the property exists, and people that buy in that area, investors that buy in that area, they know a great deal when they see it as far as price, and they will call you. Now, you will also get calls on people asking you, hey, will you rent the property, or do you have any rental properties? You have people that ask you, will you do some owner financing? You will even have people calling you saying, hey, do you need someone to cut the grass or paint the property or blah, blah, blah. So, just be prepared for all of the above. All right. So Joshua says, how does the agent get paid if I let the listing agent represent me as a buyer? Well, they get paid on both sides from you and the you on your side of it as the buyer and their side of it from the side of their client, the seller. So they would get paid if it's 6%, then they would get paid the full 6% minus what they have to pay their broker, instead of having to split that 6% with another agent because you brought them to the table. You know, you allow the greed of humans to work into your favor. Now, some of them won't even get that, right? That, hey, I'm actually, if I sold a house at 6%, some of this might not make sense to you guys, but you can just research commissions and agents and how they get paid. But normally they get paid 5-6%. It's all negotiable or whatever. But it's rare that an agent will list a property and find a buyer for it also. I mean, they have the seller and the buyer, and they can recoup their entire 100%. They would depend on other agents to bring buyers to the table in a lot of cases. So they have to split that commission. So they go from 6% down to 3% if that was the listing agreement percentage as far as commission. So on 100,000, just hopefully I'm doing this in my head now. So if I get too bundled up here, just let me know. But on $100,000 property, if that's the sales price, normally they would get paid. The fee would be $6,000 split, so that would be $3,000. You know, minus whatever they have to pay their broker, so $3,000. All right, so you make an offer of $60,000. So you would now take that 6% and times that times 60,000. That's 3,600, right? That's more than they would have made if another agent was brought in at $100,000. I hope this is making sense and is being clear to you. So what you're trying to do is get them on your side to convince the seller to accept that $60,000. Because for the agent, they're going to make more money than if they would have sold it for $100,000 if another agent was involved. All right. This is a good question here, which all of them are good questions. CL Smith says, Flip Man, can you still get success with wholesaling or have success with wholesaling in the winter time? Also, should I still put up banner signs in the winter or use another marketing strategy in the winter? Well, CL Smith, yes, you can still wholesale successfully in the wintertime. Now, the daylight hours are shorter, which can be imposing on your time as far as viewing properties and things like that. But transactions are still happening for sure. Now, as far as, and then, you know, your winters are different in different parts of the country too. But the way I always look at it is that if you're living in Minnesota, you're used to that type of weather. So nothing stops. I don't know, you Minnesotians, is that the way to say it? You advise me, what stops? You know, that's what y'all do. You know, you've chosen to live there, whatever the situation is. I'm sure business doesn't stop just because there's 6 feet of snow on the ground or whatever. You all use the snow plows and make it happen. You know, so people that live in those markets, I just can only assume that you're used to it. Just like it gets hot as Hades here in the summertime. I know the heat in the winter can be different, but it doesn't stop anything by no means. You know, maybe that's a laughable statement that I'm making about heat versus cold, but I'm just saying, you know, that's what people are used to is the point I'm making. Boom. I hope you enjoyed those highlights, but if you want to join the show live, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, Periscope, simply get over to flippinar.com at around, well, we might change the time, which you'll be aware of that, but around 7 p.m. Eastern time, look at your local times to match up to join the show live and get your questions answered live on my weekly Flippinars. Thanks, and we will see you on the flip side.
Flip man, it's the flip man. You want some money in your hand? Flipping houses without credit or your cash. Get that bag.